It's hard to do.
All right. We are here at Unity of Springfield on Sunday, February 9th. Good morning.
Good morning.
We are continuing our discussion loosely based on Shauna Nyquist's book, Present Over Perfect. And so last week we were talking about, so her book is really about her journey of realizing that she was caught up in this physical world and all the trappings of, definitions of achievement and success and feeling obligated to do more and more and more. But it wasn't really helping her keep the connections and do the things that she wanted to do. And so it's about her journey of reminding herself to stop and be still and find that presence. And so when she says present over perfect, her perfect is what she's talking about is striving for that perfect image that others would see. Or the idea of perfection that maybe she was brought up with, or, you've got to be super high achieving and you've got to always say yes. You've got to take care of everyone around you before you take care of yourself. That was like in her mind, in her programming, that was like the perfect that she was trying to achieve, and then realizing that that wasn't actually perfect for her or a perfect life to be wrapped up in. So that's where we were last week. And so this week we're talking more about that, a little bit about her journey, the things that she learned along the way to come back to the present. And I just think this is, really, it's always really important. It's the thing, right? To be still and know, and to remember that we are that perfect expression of the divine. And it feels, at least for me right now, it feels like there's a lot of kind of chaotic energy in our physical human world at the moment. And there's a lot of emotions from a lot of different directions. And so it just, again, seemed like a good time for me to dive in and remind myself of tools and the ideas of being present to divine mind and remembering to stay connected. And so just starting off today, she talked about in her journey some of the things that she kind of either remembered or the tools that she used. The first one was learning to play. And so she talked about how, when she realized as she had gotten caught up in this hustle bustle of things and be busy and do, that she'd forgotten to take moments to just like relax into life and just be silly or play, or, she talks about just sitting and daydreaming or wandering around the yard, just looking at the beauty of things and being curious about things, doing something creative like coloring or drawing, dancing around the house, playing games with the kids. And she says, that it was a reminder that our days are for loving and learning and laughing, not for pushing and planning. And that those things, what she realized is when she takes moments to play and just have fun, that it brings her back to her heart.
And that,
take the mic.
They have actually proven that laughter really is the best medicine. I mean, there's scientific proof about it now. So, hey.
Yeah, I know. That's exciting. She talks about, and this idea of play and then like putting it in perspective. So she tells a story. They have a lake house that they get to go stay at least once a year, but maybe more than that. And it's like one of her favorite places to be because she unplugs from everything else. And it's one of those places where you don't even get great cell phone service. And so you have this great excuse to just kind of be like, oh, sorry, I can't be checking my phone because we don't get good service. And she loves to be on the water. And anyway, so she's talking about, she's been going to this place since she was a kid. And where, I can't remember where it's at, but one of the traditions of this area is that if you are out on, she said, everybody out on the boat docks keeps big bowls of candy. And if people are kayaking or boating and they come close to your boat dock, like, she's like, it's been going on since she was a kid, like, you throw candy at them. You say hello and you throw candy and everybody laughs, and it's always been this joyous thing. And so she tells this story about being at the lake house, and there were some other people that were staying there with them, and she's like, we're on the boat dock, and she said, it just was kind of a crazy moment that there was like people trying to come into the boat dock, and they were like trying to help them get their boats in and tied, and there were kids running around. There was like all this chaos happening, and one of the guys that was helping sees kayakers coming, and he just like stops what he's doing to help, and he runs down to the end of the dock to the candy bowl and waves. And she said she had this moment where she was like, oh my gosh, what is he doing? Like, we're trying to get 2 boats in here and tied off, and we don't have time to throw candy. And then she said she had the realization, like, oh, I'm not taking time to throw candy anymore. When did that happen? Because that used to be one of my favorite parts about being here is how this community does these silly little things, and it's just tradition, and everybody knows it. Nobody knows where it came from, but we all just do it. And so it's those kind of moments too of just recognizing, because she said what was really impactful to her was not only did she realize she wasn't doing it anymore, but she was almost like being judgy of the people who still took the time to do it. And she said that was just like a big slap in the face of, why am I feeling resentful and like almost angry because he actually stopped in the middle of chaos to just have a connection moment and fun. Yeah, Jerry. Yeah. So, and I thought about, so even like this, like play, but then thinking about it in that context, like I was really thinking about those moments where someone, just does something silly and you go, oh, there is not time or place for that. Like, how often does that happen? And Dawn pick up something. What are you talking about? Jerry, can you give Dawn the microphone?
Wendy and I have a thing that sometimes we'll say something silly, and the other person picks up on it and tries to outdo it. They'll say something more silly, and it goes back and forth, and pretty soon the conversation is so convoluted and so out of the context of anything that we just laugh.
Yes, and those are like the best moments, right? And Lisa and I have those moments where we're just like, it's just the 2 of us in the house, and we are like belly laughing at each because we've gotten something so silly. And it's those moments where if you tried to tell somebody what the joke was, they wouldn't get it because it was in the moment.
You can't demonstrate.
Yeah.
You don't have to be with other people. I mean, I walk around my house laughing at myself a lot.
This is true. I do that also. And I'll tell on myself, like, sometimes when I'm just like really feeling stressed or whatever, there are times that I will like look in the mirror and just make a silly face at myself. Yeah, just be like, like, what is just stop. Like, and then it makes me laugh at myself because I did that. And then it's like, but it brings me back to the present moment and kind of disrupts whatever that thought process was. One of my favorite things to do with our grandkids is sometimes life just becomes a musical theater experience. And so we just, I'll just break into song. about whatever, and it like gets my heart because now sometimes when things are getting a little tense, one of them will just like break into song about whatever we're doing. And I'm like, oh, I love it. But it just it creates a silly moment and a creative moment and brings us all out of whatever external world stuff was kind of getting in our way of being connected to our joy. Anything else that anybody does that is creative or playful?
Yes, Sue has a story to share.
So we had our board retreat this weekend, and we have honorary people on our board of directors, and so I'm finding right now little tiny adult white Jesuses all around my house. So they're in the refrigerator and the freezer and the cabinets, and I know who put them there.
One of those
I'm shocked by this news.
I know.
It's something that you can, I mean, even because our daughter, Krista, put tiny ducks around our house when we were on vacation.
200 of them.
200 of them.
200 little ducklings.
And so we're still finding ducks in the house.
Yes.
But it's just one of those things that just brings you laughter and it's light-hearted stuff.
Yeah.
So this time it was tiny Jesus.
Tiny white Jesuses.
I just have this intuitive feeling
What?
that there may be about 100 of them.
Oh. No.
It's just coming to me that they're like 100 sounds like a good round number.
What I want to know is what the person's attitude was when they showed up with all those in their pocket.
So when my my stepdad, who's my dad, he passed in an accident suddenly, and we have a mixed family of, there's I have full brothers and sisters, half ones, step ones, and adopted ones. So there's, and the adopted is very young, is kind of, she'll only be up about 5th grade forever. So it's kind of like everything's supposed to be hers, it's her mom and dad, not anybody else's. So there's all these tensions and these feelings and stuff. So my brother comes in from New Hampshire, and mom's going, would you just, everybody just say what they want of, what they want. Basically, she's saying, if there's something you want of his, a want of that. So the next morning we wake up, and my brother has gone around the house and put Larry, Debbie, all over. They did post-its all over everything in the house. We woke up to that, and it totally broke all that tension.
I love it. Well, I would just tell you real quick that, sorry, I'm in my bedroom getting ready this morning, and I hear Paul is feeding Jasmine, our little dog, and I hear him out there, baby love, my baby love, and he's singing baby love to Jasmine this morning. It's totally made me crack up.
No blushing allowed.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that we see evidence of this here at Unity. Like, we have some individuals that their earth years are high, but their spirit and their activity level are still very what we would consider young. And I think this is a big portion of that. If I look at those individuals, they're still laughing at themselves and others. They're still finding fun in daily activities. And, I think this is a part, like Susan said, laughter is the best medicine. If you can stay fun and connected to your playful side, and as Jesus said, be like as a child, and it really makes a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm I'll be 72 in August, and unless I am feeling some physical pain, I don't think of myself as being almost 72.
Yeah, isn't that weird how that happens? That when you're younger, I don't know, like I recently turned 48 and
Oh my God.
I'm just looking in the mirror, but I'm just saying looking in the mirror, I was like, this is not what I thought 48 looked like when I was 10. You know, like you have a skewed vision and then you get, as
We're
you're
all
aging,
wrinkles,
yeah, as you're aging, you're like, wait a minute, like it doesn't have to be that, you know, whatever, you can be youthful as long as you want. Yeah, Jerry.
Yeah, there's in psychoanalysis, we never live to get past 25. That's mental.
Is that the problem?
Yeah. So I've always liked that. My mind thinks so, but my body says you're a fool.
Yes. So the other thing she really considered was she started to consider how she opened and closed her days, and I know Sue's talked about this a lot. And so just recognizing that there's power in beginning and ending each day with intentional connection to God's source or divine mind. This is one I'm still working on with the opening of my day, because I really like to sleep. Actually, my natural circadian rhythm has never matched up with this human world. Like I'm a little bit of a night out. Like if I could shift and the world would just work with me, where I could stay up till 2 a.m. and then be somewhere at 10 a.m. every day, like life would be great. But I keep having jobs where I have to be there at 8.
So I took a Mind Valley sleep course, and they basically, you take a test at the beginning of it, and it tells you what you're a wolf, a bear, I don't know, there's 4 of them, and that is part of the rhythm that human beings have, and he says that if you can find a job that goes with your rhythm, you're much more productive. And that, you know, when I look at it, if I go to bed before 12 o'clock, I wake up at 4 in the morning and I'm awake for a couple of hours. And so it's like, you know, according to him, if you want to get a good night's sleep, you don't go to bed until, you know, midnight, and then you get up at 7 or 8. And I think it was 2 o'clock this morning when I went to bed. But so that's natural. The other thing that's natural was, it used to be that we went to bed when the sun went down, and we got up in the middle of the night for 2 or 3 hours, restoked the fires, and did things. And there are prayers in the Catholic Church in England for the midnight, for the mid morning or in the night, and most of the crimes that were committed during that time. They have a name for it. And so it used to be that people had that rhythm where they got up in the middle of the night for 2 or 3 hours and did things, and they went back to sleep. And so that was a natural course of events. And I have a guy that I've studied some of his stuff, and he says that's the way the Bushmen in Africa still live. They go to bed when it gets dark, and then they get up and stoke their fires and have a meal and make their plans for the next day, and then they go back to sleep until the sun comes up. And so we don't live, you know, we have been, by the industrial age, we have been reprogrammed, and it goes against our nature. And you're not odd that you do that. And there's a good percentage of people that are night owls. So it's just that it's not conducive to the industrial society.
It is not.
No.
It is not. And it also is not conducive to mine and my mother's relationship now. She was like, I don't understand you. Why do you stay up? But they also had to be awake at 4 a.m. to get to their job. So they had to get, they joke now that if they ever wanted to know what was going on in my life, all they had to do was try to go to bed. And I'd be like, oh, hey, I got to tell you what happened in my day. We joke about that they used to be laying in bed and I would be standing at their bedroom door just, just like telling them, and they would finally be like, Amy, we have to go to sleep. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like, because I was like wide awake, ready to talk about my day at 10 o'clock at night. And they were like, please leave us alone because we have to get up at 3:30 so that we can get to work.
My first job was 3 shifts. You work a shift, or you work days for 1 week, swing shift the next week, and midnight shift the next week. Let me tell you, that does terrible things to your circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
I was thankful that it only happened in summertime.
Yeah.
Only in summer.
And so, with whatever, so like I said, I'm still working on that morning part. Like Sue, when you were talking just last week or the week before, and you were like, do you wake up? And you're like, ugh. Like, ugh. That was like, felt a little targeted there because some things I have tried to do is like put little notes to myself on the mirror, like to remind myself to pull out of that. So I don't have a really good morning practice, but my end of day practices have gotten better. Yeah, Jerry.
What Elby was talking about is in England they have what they call their second sleep. In Mexico they have their siesta, and I have to get my second sleep. I mean, really, I go to bed at 9. I wake up at 2:30 to 3. I'm awake until about 5. Then I got to go to work. On the weekends, I'll go back to bed at 5 or 5:30, and I have to get that 2 hours for some reason.
Nap time.
Yeah, it is.
So, as you were saying that, don't get yourself up for that because you're so immersed in. I think that like when we're trying to shift our experience, we have to be very aware of those things. So like waking up in the morning and having to practice so that we can shift how we're going to move through our day. Those things are really important, but I think eventually we get to a place where we don't necessarily have to have the practice as much because we're in the flow of it. So, I don't believe you probably get up in the day and go, oh, this sucks. I wish I didn't have to wake up today. A feeling that you're just like, I'm tired and I need to go in, and he knows that I need to go in and get my coffee and sit down and, so just, don't beat yourself up for that. I think it's okay because you got it.
I just always am like, I guess in my mind, I would like to wake up with the thought of gratitude as my first thought and not be so foggy in the mornings. Lisa and I joke about this too. She just did it. It just happened yesterday that I woke up. Like sometimes she wakes up earlier than me always. And so she'll be up and doing things and having her coffee, and I'll wake up. And so like yesterday morning, I woke up and I was still a little foggy, and I'm like, I'm just not ready to talk to anybody yet. And so I was in our room just like reading and kind of like letting myself wake up gradually. But she came in to do something. She's like, oh, I didn't know you were awake. And I was like, yeah, I was trying to wake up slowly. And then her brain is wide awake. And so she's like, what do you think about this? And blah, blah, blah. And I was like, just staring at her. She's like, oh, yeah, forgot. You're not awake. I was like, I was trying to be sneaky back here. Like, I was going to not let you know I was awake until my brain was a little more functional. But we joke about that we're like so opposite in that respect.
You can, just one thought, you can always wake up and the first thought can be, gosh, I'm grateful for coffee.
I do
But
like my warm
about
coffee.
20, I don't know, maybe longer, years ago, I started journaling. I read a book called The Artist's Way, and they insisted that we write a journal and do it first thing in the morning, and it's at least 3 pages long. When I started, I had legal pads, and then I went, ended up using those college-size notebook things.
Mm-hmm.
And every morning, I got up and I got my coffee and I went and sat down and started, good morning, you know, and I don't know, maybe about 5 years ago or so, I stopped doing the 3 pages, but I still journal every morning.
That's impressive.
And, you know, the first thing I say is, good morning, love. And then I hear this little, good morning, honey. You know?
That's nice.
And so it starts the whole day off pretty nice. You might want to try it.
Elby.
Yeah, I had a guy in my artist way class that got a notebook that was this big so he could do the 3 pages. The sleep doctor says that part of waking up is because your brain still is producing melatonin when it's dark, and so you're supposed to sleep in the dark. But he says that he carries a daylight light with him when he travels, because he travels a lot, and that daylight reduces that melatonin and it wakes you up. And so he recommends that you either have bright lights in your bathroom, or you have a daylight light, or you go outside, because he said that daylight is one of the things that will shift that grogginess, because it reduces the melatonin that your brain is producing. And so this quest was cool because he gives you those little tips that, you know, help you wake up.
Well, and it's just further evidence of how connected we are to nature, right?
Yeah.
That this human body was built to interact with the other things that are connected to divine mind. Yeah, Brenda.
Well, talk about stuff like that. I live in a fifth wheel travel trailer, and they did not design them things to live in permanently, like most people does nowadays. So whenever we built the inside of it, I put a lot more lighting in there so that you don't think you're in a dungeon all the time. So I can turn the lights on and it's just like it is right in here.
Nice. She also talks about how many other faith traditions have like physical objects that are reminders to take those moments for presence. So things like rosaries or altars, or I don't know. There, you could think of a lot of different things. And so I was just curious if those of us in Unity, do any of you have like physical objects that are around your home or something that you carry with you that to remind yourself to be in a present moment or connection?
I carry a skull.
A skull. And what does the skull represent for you?
There's the 13 skulls that there's 12 of them been found. There's like 11 of them in
Yeah, so
Indiana.
you miss the mic of people online.
And there's 11 of them in Indiana, and these are supposed to carry the same significance as those skulls. As to whether they do or not, I don't know, but whatever man believes, he can believe.
Yeah.
So it helps. Or I don't know if it does, but
For those of you online, Jerry has a very tiny skull. Not full size. He's not carrying around a full size.
no, it's not a dead man's skull. It's a crystal skull. Okay?
It's a crystal skull, a tiny
There
one.
you go. Yeah, there you go.
Just so you know, he's not carrying around.
Yeah.
But it's full.
I was going
Okay.
to try to say that you dream.
I dream very heavily, yes. And so that is often part of my morning fog is often that a dream is trying to like keep pulling me back to sleep.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to release the dream. And so
Do you write them down?
I don't, because they're I don't know. They're very random.
People online.
I will sometimes go 2 days and I'll have a dream. I wrote it down. That doesn't mean anything. And then I'll have another one the next day. All of a sudden I'll just get this out. Oh, that's what these 2 dreams meant. It's like an epiphany. You know, and I love those epiphanies. I don't care. It's just,
Yeah.
it makes me feel better as to whether it fixes
People
anything or
online are
not.
really frustrated right now.
People
Online are really frustrated right now because they can't hear anything.
I'm
from
holding it up.
No, you have to just about eat it.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
to eat it.
You have to eat it.
I have to
Like
eat
that.
it. Wow, I'm Elvis now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can sometimes I can tell in my dreams that it's things I'll be like, what was that? And I'm like, oh, it's because we watched that show and it was like it, or it's from a book I've been reading, or like there will be something. But I do have very realistic dreams. It's another way that Lisa and I differ. She very rarely ever remembers a dream, and I can remember like it's like it was a movie. Like I could use so many. She's like, how do you remember so many details? But I've always been that way. Even as a child, like when I had nightmares that took me into my mom and dad's room, and my mom would be like, well, what were you dreaming about? And I would launch into these stories, and she's like, oh, wow, okay, that's a lot. Because I could remember all these little, like all these details. Anyway, so I think that's, which could probably is like where my sleep cycle is when it's time to wake up in, like, as far as what this human world requires of me to wake up. Because if I sleep a little later, I tend to not be trying to be pulled into a dream as much. It's like I've completed that cycle and it goes through. Anyway, now you all know way more about me than you know. Any other physical objects that people keep around them or as reminders? I've seen some people that maybe have like a prayer bead necklace on, or they wear prayer beads around their wrists.
I think for me, it's just words. There's just words in our house. There's scripture, there's words, there's just things that are just everywhere.
Yeah.
When I practiced yoga for a couple decades, pretty heavily, I wore what was called a pratik. And this pratik is actually, it's a star. So you had an upward triangle and a downward triangle. And the upward triangle meant spiritual progress, and the downward triangle meant social change. And, it's just part of my practice is to, meditate on that.
If anybody comes over to my house, I decorate my house all year long for different changes. I change everything. I want it to where everywhere I look around, there's something beautiful or playful, and that's exactly how it is right now. There are snowmen and snowflakes and blue
Must be
things
40 of them.
hanging, and it's just everywhere because I want to be happy. I want to feel good.
So it's about having those little moments of joy as you look around. And yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. What I was thinking through all this, and then I was like, oh, I'm kind of doing something right now. One of my things to do when I'm like coming in here to prepare to have this conversation or whatever, on Sirius Radio, there's a station called the Spa Station, and it just plays this really nice music with no words, and it's kind of the relaxing, what you would expect to hear in a spa experience, maybe. And that is like, if I want to kind of lose myself in thought as I'm traveling, that station puts me in that zone where, because there's no words and it's just the sounds and the music, I can let my thoughts wander. And so that's one of the things that I will intentionally do is be like, oh, this morning is a spa morning because I want to let my mind wander, and release anything that I'm going to take into the next experience of the day that is not for that. So, you know, especially I'll do that sometimes on my way home if work has been really stressful or tense or whatever, and I've been going all day. I'll listen to the spa on the way home so that by the time I pull in the driveway, maybe I've released at least most of that. All right, so she also shares this poem, and I just thought it was really nice. Oh, it's really tiny. So it's The Journey by Mary Oliver. So it says, one day you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble, and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations. Though their melancholy was terrible, it was already late enough in a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stories, but little by little,
Branches and stones, but little by little.
yeah, I feel like, hang on a second.
Gotta be another page.
Yes, and I know I typed it. I don't know where it's at.
We're so disappointed at you not being perfect.
Yes.
Well,
Ooh.
I know, right? Well, it's a good thing that I brought this. Now I can get to it. I must have hit delete at some point without realizing it.
Well, I never do that.
Whoa.
I never don't have a slide or miss one or
Okay.
Or a bylaws.
yes.
So let's start over where I can see it. Okay. So one day you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough in a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life that you could save. And I just thought that is so nice, that it is a good journey, journey poem, journey story. And I've also been reading again some Eric Butterworth and some H. Emily Cady. And it really, that journey, thinking about this idea of the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Like, that's the story of that chemicalization, right? Where we're on the journey and we start to see something more expansive, and the foundation, that old house, is like, wait a minute, you're gonna have to tear me down to move forward. Like, I can't exist in the same way if you're going to move forward in this journey. And so some of that old programming and those old thoughts really start to rattle us a little bit. And then but you move forward knowing, and you start to hear that voice that is your own. That's the realization that you are connected to that divine mind, and that all is well, and that the whole journey is important, and that that it's okay to restructure the house, so to say, or to move to a different place. I was like, I know Wendy's got something. I can always see it on your face.
Actually, it's similar to what you're saying, but kind of opposite too, because in this striving to be perfect, particularly those of us who our spiritual journey is very important, and it's very important that we don't get stuck in that. But nevertheless, there are still times. So, like this past week, Don and I had kind of reached a place where we'd had this discussion. We very seldom have even hard discussions, but we had a discussion. It was kind of like, you can't make me happy, I can't make you happy. We have to. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try to just live with that. And you know what? It just doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work for me. If I don't think about what makes my husband happy and choose some of the things that I do to make him happy, so it's like saying, even I don't have to be perfect in this spiritual journey. I don't have to do it the way others do it. It kind of like, sat down last night and I just said to him, I said, what I see this doing is eventually we're not going to spend any time together. We're not going to do anything together. And even though this is a spiritual principle that a lot of things in metaphysics say, it just doesn't work for me. I love being your wife. I love thinking about what I do in my day that makes our relationship work and working for it. And so part of that perfection of even on the spiritual journey is we can say, nah, that part doesn't work. I'm not.
Wendy is the same thing, because doing wonderful things for him makes you happy.
Yeah.
So who cares? If you're making yourself happy.
Yeah. That's a good point though, and I think that it's one of those that I find those of us here in Unity, we're really good at honoring that and validating that for others. Like, oh, you don't have to be perfect on the journey. Don't worry about it. Like, we're all whatever. But then I've seen several, and I'm calling myself out. But it's like, oh, but like I have this expectation that I'm going to do more perfectly. I don't know, or I'm not going to give myself as much grace as I give other people. And so it's a good reminder that we do have free will, and we are living this human experience, and whatever that looks like for us is good.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like for us is good. Yeah.
But aren't we all perfect? Okay, I mean, I'm perfect in me.
Yeah,
I
perfectly
am who
imperfect.
I am. I am what Source needs to be wherever I am, as long as I am me. So.
Yeah, and it, yes. So I pulled this Butterworth out of Discover Your Power Within. So he says, viewing the vastness of the universe, we tend to become confused when we seem to be losing our identity. But we must remember that the universe has meaning because we have meaning, and we have meaning because the universe has meaning. All discovery is self-discovery, and all knowledge is self-knowledge. Thus, the greatest discovery in science is not outward accomplishments, but inward revelation and the truth that sets us free to take the outer step. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about here. Like, we have meaning because the universe has meaning. The universe has meaning because we have meaning, because it is all connected. And so whatever is showing up and expressing for us and through us and as us is what is necessary at this time to be expressing. And I relate to this statement of viewing the vastness of the universe. I think I have moments where, like, it's easy in our humanness to get caught up in what directly surrounds us. And then I have moments, like, we have the benefit of living outside of town. And so sometimes if I've been somewhere and I come home and it's dark and there's no clouds in the sky, like, you can just see the stars out where we are. And so sometimes I will get out of my car. Sometimes while I'm driving, I'm looking, and then I'll take a moment when I get home to just stand and look up at the sky. And those moments where I'm just like, oh, like, I am but a speck in this vast universe. And there's like that moment of connection, but then it, like, the vastness of that is a little, like, overwhelming to my human mind and my human system sometimes, where like I can only do it in short bursts, I guess, like, because I'm like, oh, like, I start to feel that expansion, and it feels wonderful, but then at the same time it's like, and if that is true, then what? And so then my human monkey mind gets a little, like, caught up in what does that all mean? And what is mine to do? And Lisa and I have a little joke. She'll be like, what are you thinking about? And I'm like, oh, just little things, like me, my life, my place in it. What is mine to do? Like, what's trying to express through me? Just, simple things like that. And so she's always laughing at me, because that's when I can't sum up what's going on in my brain, that's kind of what I'll do. Like, the meaning of the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brenda.
Well, a few years ago, I had a customer that was having trouble with his tractor, and I went out to his farm, and it was at nighttime, so I could try to decipher what the problem was. And it was a night that had a full moon. And I figured out the problem with the tractor, and then I thought, wow, this is amazingly what you can see out here in the middle of nowhere with a full moon.
Wow.
Yeah.
And whenever we're living in a town, like even on the farms nowadays, they got all these security lights up around, so it kind of diminishes the effect of being able to enjoy a full moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just was thinking, like, we were watching a documentary the other day. I don't know. And so, like, one of the other things that will get me is when I'm watching something or reading something, and they start talking about how many people are alive on the planet right now. And so we interact with, our few 100,000 in our little area, but then you start hearing about, in this area, there's this many million people that live in this area, and this many million people that live in this area, and you start really thinking about, what does a million people look like? And I am one in the million, and so it's that whole I am a drop in the ocean concept, and that'll really get me going sometimes too.
So we got a new cat this last year. She's just over a year, so she still had a lot of kitten in her. And there's a show on TV that is called My Cat from HE Double Toothpick. Okay, and so I was reading that, and you have to think like a cat. If you have a cat, it's there by itself. You have to think like a cat, and I will guarantee you that you're not going to get into perfectionism craziness if you start to think like a cat thinks. And so we create games and play with her, and thinking like a cat. And, cat, everything we bring into the house, I can put the box that it comes in on the floor, or the package it comes in. She's happy for an hour or more, with a box. and put the food out on the steps in the back so the squirrels come up to the sliding glass door. You know, it's just little things that keep a hat happy. And boy, when she can figure out how to, that DVD player coming in and out, that's the biggest problem of the universe, the biggest thing in the universe. And the same way with us, you know, we look at it as how can we be like a cat inside the cat?
Nice. And when I say it gets me going, like I have the moment where I'm like, and then, but what it is, it reminds me like, and you are like all is well, and you find your connection, and so those are reminders to me to come back to what I am and who I am and the center of that and my place in the collective consciousness. Yeah.
To one of the things that that gives me such a frame of reference. My dad left home when his mom died when he was probably 22, 23, something like that, and had no contact with his family at all. And he lived all over the country. He lived in Salt Lake and San Francisco and Chicago and basically all over. And so he's in New York City. And at that time, it probably was at least 5 or 6 million people, because this was probably 45, somewhere around there. And he's taking voice lessons. And the woman that he's taking voice lessons with works in the office with his brother. And she's like, do you have a younger brother? And he says, well, we have a younger brother, but we figure he's dead because we haven't heard anything from him for 20 years. And so she had them over for dinner. So after 20 years, my dad was reunited with his family in a city of 5 or 6 million people.
No coincidence.
So if we think that we are insignificant and we look at the things that the universe does, he had a disagreement with his dad for years, probably. And his dad was living with my parents when he died. And it was before I was born. So, you know, even when you get to thinking, well, I'm not very significant because there's like all these people on the planet. But when the universe does something like that, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
You know, the universe has connections that we just don't even have an understanding of.
Yep. And so the last slide I have is also from Better Words. The ultimate of our research into the universe around us must come from the knowledge of the mind that sustains it, the mind in which it actually has its only existence. And the study of mind can only be done through introspection, self-contemplation, and spiritual research. And I think that's what we've been talking about is, you know, the art of being present or finding this presence is remembering this, that the way to that presence is always through like introspection and self-contemplation. It's that inside job. It's, you know, so you said a million times, it's the inside job. And that as long as we are finding those moments or allowing those moments, then we're still moving forward, or that's a way to get unstuck if you're feeling stuck is to bring yourself back to some of that work. Gary, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to depress everybody. Today, out of 8.5 billion people on this planet, 625 million of them will die, but there's 630 million of them that will be born.
Why is that depressing?
Yeah.
Just the way it is.
Yeah. I know, and I always get intrigued too. You know, there's what is it that every 7 years, like the cells in our body shift, and it's that whole we are stardust because of, you know, the matter of the universe is shifting, and that really every 7 years our body is every cell is new. Yes, every cell in our body is new, and that's just a mind-blowing thing to think about as well, like the perfection of how this human body exists in this spiritual expression, having this spiritual experience.
Every 7 days, your stomach lining changes. Every 7 days.
Interesting. Dawn is saying every 7 days your stomach lining.
Well, all that acid in there, you gotta give it some breaks.
That's true. Susan, did you have something?
Well, just something to depress you further if you feel insignificant. A few years ago, I met a group of people who were studying a book called the Urantia book, and it's kind of a thick book on Bible thin paper, and it took us 4 years of one night a week to read the book. And he talked about feeling insignificant in this universe, and there's actually 700 universes according to this book, just like ours. And they're all in a giant universe. And this is supposed to be channeled material from a guy that was asleep back in the 30s. And his wife called a friend, and the friend came in and started taking it all down. But interesting, huh? So there you go. We've got a long way to go.
So not only are we but a drop in the ocean of this universe, but we're a drop in the ocean of universes.
Although this universe is special because the rest of them are all living in light and love, and this one has got more of an experimental thing going on. And you have to be pretty special to even be in this universe.
So the other universes are the control group, and we are the experimental group. Okay.
And I'm not going to say something depressing. I am so grateful that I don't have to wear this outfit for eternity.
Yeah.
And that I get to cross over. Isn't it wonderful that so many people got to move forward, start again, and create a new game?
Yeah, awesome. All right, so we're at the end of our time. I love this conversation. I love when we do this kind of work together. So meditation is tonight at 6 p.m. It's open to everyone. The Navigating Grief Support Group meets on the second and fourth Fridays each month at 6 p.m. The group is open to anyone experiencing any type of grief, not group, grief. And their next meeting is Friday, February 14th. Next Sunday in our Adult Ed New Thought World Religion class, Wendy Fredrickson will present virtual reality. Class begins at 9:15. Bring a dish to share and join us for our next Fellowship Sunday potluck on March 2nd. And sign up in the foyer with the dish that you plan to bring. Planet Unity Indoor Yard Sale will be April 11th and 12th, which is the weekend before our Planet Unity event this year. We usually wouldn't take clothing at this sale, but since we're having it the weekend before, we'll have some space and we'll be accepting clothes. We'll accept all the usual items except big heavy furniture and electronics. And we would ask that you start bringing donations the week of March 9th. Do you desire to be more involved in our spiritual community? One of the fastest ways to get connected is to volunteer. And our own Lisa Landergan is the volunteer coordinator and happy to discuss all the volunteer opportunities with you. Important dates coming up to remember: March 2nd, Friendship Sunday Potluck; March 9th, Bring Yard Sale donations; April 6th, new member ceremony; 11th and 12th, the Indoor Yard Sale; 18th and 19th of April, Planet Unity; and May 10th, we are going to try to be joyous about Sue's retirement party, although it is a bittersweet for most of us. And that is our announcements today. Thank you all. We are complete. And for those in the room, we'll circle up in the back.